And two high-profile murder cases in Massachusetts are raising questions about the relationship between police and county prosecutors. A former Stoughton police detective is accused of killing a pregnant woman and staging her death to look like a suicide. This after a judge declared a mistrial of Karen Reed's case. Reed was accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, but said she was being framed. Now both cases are in the spotlight as experts say there may have been possible missteps in these investigations. I want to bring in our legal contributor, Brian Buckmeyer, to help unpack this a little bit. Brian, they're not just talking about missteps in this case and in this case, but links here between the two. What is it about these two cases that are raising so many questions? So first and foremost, it's coming from the same area of Massachusetts. And in fact, even some of the officers in both cases, there are connections, that there are similarities between the two. And if you look at it even conservatively, at the very least, it's police misconduct. If you're looking at Detective Proctor sending inflammatory and inappropriate text messages in the middle of an investigation about the defendant in the case, or the very worst, you're looking at the former officer Farwell, who's accused of raping a minor and then murdering her to cover it up, all of which was not found out some years afterwards. Or if you're looking at the Karen Reed case, there's a potential cover-up. How are they going to explain, especially with a federal investigation now underlying this, how are they going to explain how the local investigators missed things that federal investigators are now picking up on? That's a great question. And that's at the heart of this issue here, because this is a case where you're looking specifically with the federal investigation when it comes to the second case that involves the rape of the 23-year-old girl but raped when she was much younger. At first, you have the autopsy that said it was suicide, but you see a specific bone in her throat that's usually associated with strangulation and not with suicide. How do they miss that? How do they miss the text messages? How do they miss the grooming for almost 8 years of a minor? And how do they miss her diary entries about her being raped by this officer? How do they miss all of that? And then 3 years, get an indictment. Now, it's also very peculiar for the feds to charge someone for murder. That's typically a state charge. So even now, where's the state with charges? And a lot of the conversation is about the relationship between prosecutors and police. What is that relationship supposed to look like, and how does that compare to the picture being painted here? So in Massachusetts, the way that it works is a detective is assigned to a specific district attorney's office. And so you'll see that they have a very close relationship. But a prosecutor is supposed to be the check and balance to that of the officer, that the officers go and investigate a case, they arrest people, they collect evidence, and they provide it to the prosecution. The prosecution is supposed to make sure that the civil liberties of individuals are not being run over. They're supposed to check that if law enforcement are the actual perpetrator of crimes, that they're getting prosecuted. But because that relationship can be so intertwined, it's often overlooked, or they're just saying, you know what, this is what the officer has told me. I believe it at full length. I'm not going to inquire. I'm not going to push back. Even if there's contradicting evidence, I won't ask about it. That's a problem that not only Massachusetts has, but I myself, as a public defender here in New York for about 9 years and even practicing in private practice, see a lot from prosecutors. That relationship is so tight that prosecutors aren't the check and balance. They're just, hey, buddy, we worked together for so long. I trust you. I'm not going to look over your work. And lo and behold, you have cases like this. So how could this doubt impact these prosecutions, both of Stoughton and Reed in her new trial? And how do you see this playing out? Do you think this could become a bigger issue? Absolutely. As a defense attorney, oftentimes you attack the evidence. The evidence isn't complete enough in order to find that my client is guilty or not. The other option, as we've seen in many high-profile cases, you can look at OJ and the like, of if the investigation is bad, then the result, therefore, must be bad as well. And when you have a police department that a community, especially when that community is encompassing the jurors, don't trust how the police are operating, then cases, even if the person is guilty or innocent, can often fall apart. All right. This is an interesting one to follow, Brian. Thanks for staying on top of it for us. My pleasure. And a programming note for you. This week on 2020, we will profile the Karen Reed case. 2020 airs Friday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central on ABC News, and later on Hulu.